Hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm here to present a project called LiveLab, which is a browser-based toolkit for networked performance. A little bit about me. I'm a programmer and an artist. I used to work at a museum making interactive exhibits about science, and more recently I've been working a lot with live performance as well as browser experiments in the browser. I also do a lot of cartography. LiveLab was first proposed by an organization called CultureHub that works a lot with networked performances, which are performances that happen in geographically distinct locations. Also, this includes distance education, telepresence. CultureHub was co-founded by La Mama Experimental Theater in New York and Seoul Arts in Korea. And so from its start is always working at a distance. This is an example of a project. It's called The Return, and it was a mediated puppetry performance that was performed in 2 locations in New York and also in Korea, in which live video was projected onto puppets in real time. And it was also broadcast in real time on a platform called HoloRound. That's a live streaming platform. More shots from that performance. Graphic Ships these are just examples to sort of start getting a feel of what is networked performance, which is also a nebulous thing. Graphic Ships was an audio-visual performance in which musicians responded to a live score that was generated either by a dancer or by a live audience. And the musicians were located in different places and were connected via live streaming technology. This isn't new. In the 80s, there was a project called Hole in Space that was, I guess, a precursor to Skype, but Kit Galloway and Shay Rabinowitz live projected people in public space in Los Angeles with in New York. And so people saw another public space in life size, and this was for in this period when Skype and video conferencing were not at all common. This was really a magical experience to see people who were far away and be able to talk. And this was all satellite, transmitted via satellite. So this project grew out of limitations for existing hardware and software used for networked performance. And these were identified by CultureHub throughout their experience producing this kind of performance. The hardware is really expensive. For a professional grade thing, it's about $5,000. And to really collaborate with lots of different people, that's a really prohibitive cost. And that only allows you to communicate with one other place at once. There's fixed layouts. There's very minimal control about routing things if you're a venue and you want to have different streams of audio and different streams of video without writing your own custom software to do all of this. The software is proprietary and unmodifiable. This is, at this point, a year ago was when I started to work on this project, when a few people at CultureHub started asking, what if we make our own software for this? That would be an open source toolkit that's more of a playground for trying out different ideas with this that goes a lot way beyond just sending video or creating Skype. So LiveLab is a browser-based toolkit for networked performance. You can share audio, video, and data streams within the browser. It's based off a peer-to-peer mesh network. What I mean by that is it opens up connections directly between people who are connected. It doesn't have to send everything through a server. For venues and performers in geographically distinct locations. And the idea is that it's open source and hackable. Jesse, Rick at CultureHub, and I have been the main developers on this project, but we've also been advised by a few other people. Now I'm going to show a prototype. How do I go there? No. Oh, okay. This is a screenshot of the prototype that we have up until this point. This is me opening the window in my browser and someone else opening the window in their browser. With the prototype that we have right now, we can open up as many windows as we want with the remote streams. This is all based in the browser, by the way, and share, make them full screen, put them on different screens, control the audio output. I'm going to wait till it catches up. There's also the capability to route data streams, which basically could be used for something like sending connect information or whatever kind of data you would want to send to the other. So that's listening on a local port and then forwarding it through WebSockets and then through data channels to the remote participants. There's a chat. I'll just let that go. You can connect, send as many feeds as you want from the same source by opening new tabs. And then something I started working on, but that hopefully will develop more at Interactivos, is a live mixer. This is reading the remote streams into a WebGL context and applying effects in real time. It's built using JavaScript and hosted on GitHub. The underlying technology is WebRTC, which is a browser protocol for sharing video, audio, and data directly between clients. It's mainly used for video and audio, but another really exciting part of WebRTC is data channels, which don't need to go through a server, which is kind of unique in a lot of web technologies because so much of web technology ends up being this hierarchical structure in which everyone connects to a server such as Facebook or Google and receives their information from Google. WebRTC only needs a server in order to set up the initial connections between different browsers, and then the server could crash and you're still connected to the other people who are connected. There's been some interesting projects lately using this technology, especially the data channels portion, to create, for example, a BitTorrent client that runs directly in the browser. Peer CDN is a content delivery network in which instead of everyone streaming content from a single server, everyone who's connected in the network helps everyone else to download streaming content. So next steps. Up until this point, the prototype has really been focused on the routing streams between two different places and sort of the needs of venues who are working within this space. And I'm interested, with collaborators here, to work more on not just routing streams, but what happens in this in-between virtual space where we have this video content and audio and all of this. A lot of it is inspired by, back in the 70s, Kate Galloway and Sherry Rubinitz. Again, this is a project called Satellite Arts Project that was research into this. This was sort of the first time where you could see yourself live on a screen and also see other people live on a screen. And they viewed this digital space as another space, and we're really interested in what happens in this space and what are the possibilities of this space. So it's sort of that live immersive space that I really want to explore while we're here. So a little bit more specific, some of the ways that we're set up right now to explore this using the existing code is real-time audio-visual mixing, interaction between physical and virtual space, and network topology and artifacts, which I'll go into more in a second. Real-time compositing and blending using WebGL and web audio. This was an experiment that I did. Oh, you can't read the credits at all. But with the artists Daniel Pinero and Lisa Parra, who are two performance artists who work at a distance. And this is a slit scan that was reading in their two video feeds in real time and creating this sort of documentation of the live performance that happened. And the idea is that now we have this prototype that's receiving lots of different streams, and the idea is to remix it and play around with how different layouts within this virtual space can create different types of interactivity in real time. Interaction between physical and virtual space. One of the things that we have to play with during Interactivos is our two Arduinos with stepper motors and webcams to be able to create cameras that move based on remote data or someone else moving. Another thing I'm really interested in exploring is network topology and how it relates to this type of interaction. The diagram on the left is basically how everyone is connected at this point. If you join the prototype, you're connected to everyone else, which, as you can imagine, doesn't scale up to more than about 10 people. But I'm interested in exploring how different formats of people connected can scale up to send streams to hundreds of people, and also what are the glitches and feedback that happen in that process, and how those glitches and feedback aren't something necessarily to try to erase, but to sort of embrace as a choreographic or performative element. Collaborators, definitely programmers are welcome. There's complicated programming things to hack away on, such as streaming, video codecs, and graphics programming, but also beginner programmers are welcome as well. Jesse, who's been my collaborator on this project, has really learned to code throughout developing this prototype, so definitely all levels of programmers, performers, and choreographers. Also, there's a few remote performers, both audio and movement-based performers who are available to work with us during Interactivos, and also people with audio-visual experience, such as live sound and video mixing. What I'm hoping for the process for this week isn't so much to develop a lot of code as much as to more, for me, take a step back and play around with what are the possibilities of this and create a lot of prototypes and document the prototypes and also plan how to start including them within the toolkit. And it's really open to your ideas or your artistic practice and how this might fit into your process. So, thank you.
Are you looking for a certain type of performance?
No. Any type.
Okay.
Do you have a particular thing in mind?
Yeah, I'm interested in like video installations and performance as well. And I'm interested in your project because well, I'm looking forward to look into the relationship between our real life identity and our virtual identity.
Cool, that sounds great.
No?
Just to know, do you have some reference of similar projects, kind of mixing, it's kind of more working in the graphical area, no? Also, but
there's a lot. I think there's references in a few different areas. There's for example, VJ software, and there's a few browser-based VJ software, for example. In terms of interaction between lots of people, there's things like multiplayer games where that's really creating a virtual space and people are interacting with each other in that virtual space. There's projects like from the 70s, as I showed, and there's things like Periscope too, where in some ways that's an app for live streaming what you're doing in your daily life, and anyone on the internet can connect and see what you're doing, which in some ways is also a performance. So I think there's lots of references in different places.
Well, just thinking in the graphical stuff, no? I'm just also curious about the network things that you explained that we didn't understand so well. Maybe you could about the idea, no? It's just repeat it. But
yeah, I think that's probably the most open-ended part, but also interesting for me is sort of each time a video gets sent, there's latency, there's a glitch, and each time it gets sent, 100 times, what happens if I send you a video and it goes through all those people and comes back to me, and how might both from an aesthetic perspective, what happens within the underlying technology, and then also how can, I think, with the new what we have access to now that didn't exist, for example, in the 70s or 80s, is really connecting 100 people at once and sending, playing with how the video, I tend to think in video a lot, but I also mean audio and other things when I say video.
It's such a kind of a structure, it's a data input, no? At the end, if you get all the network, then maybe some data that you can use for the visuals, or is not maybe used for that.
I didn't understand that part.
Exactly, when you have this, it's just in terms of what is happening, or maybe you are using this, you are thinking to use this in the software in-how, no?
The question was whether to structure the software this way, or whether
to be used, or
yeah. One part of it would be to be able to enable broadcast of a live performance to hundreds of people instead of using a lot of powerful servers or a commercial service like YouTube. To imagine it, basically my stream gets sent to you and you send it to that person who sends it to that person who sends it to that person, and through that way connecting hundreds of people, but also experimenting with what happens if you start modifying or contributing to what's being sent to you, and how can these different structures lead to different ways of looking at what a live stream is, or what a performance is.
Okay, thank you.
And we can go more in depth in the workshop.
Okay, no more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia.